guys, and welcome to Book and Loop, where happiness is handmade and the best boyfriends are always found in books. So I am finally jumping on the bandwagon. Everybody else has been talking about this book since it came out earlier this year. I wound up discussing it very briefly in my May book haul video. I wound up stumbling across it in a store and just falling in love with the cover and being like, "You're coming home with me," and I wound up getting one of the first edition books, which I didn't realize was going to be such a huge deal until months later when everyone was looking all over for it. But I have it. I have now finally officially read it, and I can officially say that I am, in fact, a Fourth Wing fan. I was totally sold by this book. I wound up reading it because my older sister was going to be reading it and she wanted to read it together, and I said, absolutely, I will read it with you. We wound up both reading it and both enjoying it, and now it's 2 days out from when Iron Flame comes out. People are already finding it in stores. I have not been fortunate enough to find it in the store yet. I did pre-order it. I'm hoping that it will come sooner rather than later, but I am anticipating Iron Flame so much. I figured what better way to spend my time waiting than to make a Fourth Wing video where I discuss not only everything that happened in the book, but also where I kind of can throw around some of my theories for what's going to happen in Iron Flame and beyond. Similar to my regular videos, the first portion will be just a basic overview of what the book is about, my basic reactions, and then from there we'll jump into the spoilery section. And this video will be a little different, of course, like I said, because I'll be giving you a little bit of my theories. I see people posting their theories all over online, and I figure why not add to the theory pool out there, and give my theories on what's going to happen in book 2 and the rest of the series. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So I did my best to kind of research the correct pronunciations for the different words. A lot of the words are from Gaelic, and I do not speak it. I don't really know it. I'm not overly familiar with it, so I'm gonna do my best to not butcher the language and do my best to kind of do it justice as much as possible, and hopefully if I say anything wrong, please correct me in the comments. I am a big, I want to pronounce everything everything right. I do the same thing. I'm a big Greek mythology person, and I always get myself so nervous because I don't want to dishonor anything, and I don't want to say anything wrong. So I do my best to try and research beforehand. So again, if I say anything wrong, I apologize, and I'm going to do my very best to pronounce things correctly. I feel like even going through and saying what Fourth Wing is about, majority of people have already read it or know what it's about. But I'm going to, just for those of you that don't know, give you a little bit of an overview of what Fourth Wing is about. This book tells the story of Violet, and Violet lives in the kingdom of Navarre, and Navarre has been at war for years, literally years, with their neighboring country, Poromio. So you kind of have these two countries that are in war for, I don't really remember exactly how many years, but I want to say it was like 300-400 years that these two countries have been fighting back and forth. Naturally, if you have a country, or you live in a country that's been at war for so many years and so long, it makes sense to kind of have a war college, I guess, depending on how you look at it. In Navarre, they have this war college called Basquiat, and Basquiat is kind of the central area where they train their soldiers, and they train the different people that are working for the war. They have the scribes, they have the infantry, they have the healers, and they also have the writer's quadrant, because of course, if you couldn't tell from either the sprayed edges or the front of the book, there are dragons in Fourth Wing. So they have dragons in Navarre, but they have Griffin in Poromio. Violet has kind of been raised to be a scribe. Well, her mom is the commanding general of the Navarre army, and as such, she kind of runs Basquiat, kind of like the dean of the school, almost, if you were to think of it in modern day college terms. Not only is she the commanding general, but she's also a rider. So she originated from the rider quadrant. And if you're a rider, that means that you kind of go through this really special training. You're kind of part of like the elite branch of the army almost, and you have the opportunity to bond with a dragon and to become a rider, hence why they're called riders. So Violet's mom is the commanding general, but her dad was a scribe, and the scribes basically are the people that are writing down the history as it happens. They will send and receive updates for the army and all this different stuff. So Violet, when she was born, her mom was sick. From my understanding, when Violet's mom was pregnant with Violet, she was very sick, and as a result, Violet was kind of born very frail. She has her ligaments and her tendons are loose, her bones are very brittle, and her hair is kind of faded gray at the bottom. So you kind of have Violet, who everyone kind of views her as being like this very fragile kind of person. Growing up, her dad would always take her into the scribes quadrant, and he would show her how to be a scribe and teach her how to deal with the books and all these different things that they're working with in the scribes quadrant, kind of with the hopes of her becoming a scribe. So Violet has two older siblings. She has Mira, and Mira is currently part of the Riders Quadrant. She's off fighting during the war. And you have Brennan. And Brennan was the oldest sibling. He was part of the Riders Quadrant, but unfortunately during a rebellion, he wound up passing, and now it is officially Violet's turn to enter the college, and she has the choice to either join the scribes quadrant or she can join the riders quadrant, or healer or infantry, whatever she wants to pick. And Violet's mom is forcing her into the Riders Quadrant. There's not going to be a Stormgale who's not a rider, so she is forcing Violet into the Riders Quadrant, not giving her a choice. Within the Riders Quadrant, you kind of have all these people that are fighting for this spot, and there's a limited number of dragons that they're able to bond with, and so it's kind of like a ruthless race to the top, and you want to try and be top of your class, you want to bond with the dragon, and you want to do everything that you can in order to survive. Violet has no choice. Her mom is not giving her a choice. She has to go into the Riders Quadrant. And when she is in the Riders Quadrant, she's going to have to do her best to survive, and not disappoint her mother and not disappoint Mira and her family. Her older sister Mira, before Violet goes, tells her two things: to find Dain Eteos and to stay away from Zeta and Riorson. And these two things, Violet kind of sort of listens to. Not really. Just because she kind of seems to always be running into Xaden. And the reason that Violet has to stay away from Xaden is because Xaden's parents were kind of the main force behind the rebellion that took place 6 years ago when her older brother was killed. And as a result of that, they had to watch their parents be executed, and they were forced to then join the Riders Quadrant. I feel like it sounds like I'm saying writers, but I'm saying riders, and I don't know how to like differentiate the words. But just know I'm saying rider, RIDERS quadrant, writers quadrant. I got writing on the brain because it's NaNoWriMo, and that's all I think about all day long now. And going back to Dain, so Mira wants Violet to find Dain because Dain was a childhood friend of hers. And you kind of get to see Violet struggle and triumph as she not only has to defend herself, but she bravely defends the people around her as well, the people she cares about, her friends, from all these threats within the college, whether that be people that are literally just looking to kill Violet to prove that they can, people desperate to be top of the class in order to be able to bond with the dragon, people from the rebellion, anything like that. Violet kind of, you get to see her strength come through as she continues to fight back, and she really does a great job of using her wits and her knowledge that she gained from working under her father in the Scribes Quadrant. You get to see that really come through, and it's really great. Basically, it's a book where you are constantly, your heart is pounding. every moment you're not sure what's gonna happen. Literally anything could happen, but you can't help but root for the main character as somebody that's kind of like this underdog character, but she's so determined to prove to everybody that she can be strong and she can be powerful, and she can do everything that everybody else can do despite her disability, and sometimes even because of her disability, you know. So it's just so, it was such a good story, and I feel like Violet was such a great main character, and I really just, I love it. And I feel like I never do the book justice when I talk about like the plot. I feel like I miss a ton of stuff, but I mean, it's just so good. I mean, you see literally everybody raving about it, and I definitely think the book is worth the hype. I feel like so many times you have like this book blow up all over everything, and you're like, wow, like I'm really gonna read it. It looks, sounds so good. Everyone's making it seem like it's so good, and then you're kind of like, eh, it was just all right, and it doesn't like live up to the hype that everybody built around it. But like this one was different. I feel like it did live up to the hype around it. I think part of it too is that like I love fantasy, and I love high fantasy, and I love anything like that. And it really just like spoke to a lot of the things that I enjoy reading in a book. So I think that it's a really great book. I mean, my older sister read it, and she doesn't really read fantasy. This was like her first fantasy that she had read, other than like a contemporary fantasy called the Super Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This one is a high fantasy, and she wound up really liking it a lot, and it's been great to share that with her and to discuss it with her. So I think that's gonna be it for my non-spoilerly part. I'm just itching to get into the spoilers for this book. I just have so many things that I want to talk about, and so many things that I want to point out, and see if other people noticed as well. So I'm going to end the non-spoilerly part of the video here so that we can go ahead and jump in. So if you haven't read Fourth Wing, definitely go do it. It's totally worth the hype. I think it was really, really great. And I will hope to see you back here once you finish it. So that's going to be all. Time to get on to the spoilers. So as per usual, I have my Rocket book here with all of my notes for Fourth Wing. I have my notes for everything that I've read since September in here, including all of my Stuff Your Kindle Tight titles that I downloaded. But I do have all of my notes for Fourth Wing in here as well. I just have to flip through, get to them because they're kind of towards the end of the book. So let's see. All right, here is all my Fourth Wing notes. So I'm just going to kind of run down the list in order. I did try to take notes while I was going and make sure that I'm not missing anything that I thought was worth bringing up, so that you guys can see the beauty of this cover. I mean, just look at how gorgeous it is with the reflective, almost like a foiled cover. It catches the light so nice and pretty. And I'm excited for Iron Flame because I feel like the colors on Iron Flame are just gorgeous. So anyway, first thing that I wrote, and I kind of mentioned it already in the non-spoiler section, was that overall I really liked Violet as a character. She knows her limitations, and she always pushes past them anyway, and I feel like that's such a great lesson for anybody. A lot of times people will kind of like see their limitations and they'll be like, well, I can never do better. But you always can do better. You can always fight to better yourself and to better your situation. And I feel like Violet really does this a lot in the book, where she's kind of just like, yeah, like I'm gonna have to do, when she does the like the challenges, the wrestling, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but the wrestling challenges where they have to they'll get like paired up every week and they have to fight somebody different. Well, it kind of uses her knowledge instead of her strength to overcome these challenges. I feel like a lot of times in books you kind of have the characters that are limitless, right? They can do anything. They can go on and they can fight and they can always overcome. But Violet knows her limitations and she acknowledges them, and she comes up with ways to get past it. Especially you see that a lot in the gauntlet scene where she is trying to figure out, okay, I have to do, and I kind of pictured it like American Ninja Warrior. I literally said to my sister, I was like, the second that they brought up the gauntlet and like described like what each of the obstacle course portions were, I was like, is this Wipeout? Like, I was like, that's exactly what I was picturing, like a cross between like Wipeout and American Ninja Warrior. So the main thing though was when Violet is trying to go up the wall and she has to kind of like jump like an X and like go up the wall. I was like racking my brain with her trying to figure out, okay, how's she gonna do this? And you kind of have her her really shine in that moment where she grabs the wall and she kind of like wrong. She grabs the rope and uses it to climb up the wall. So I feel like you really get to see these moments where you get to see her intelligence shine through, and I feel like that's great because a lot of times I feel like you get characters that kind of just like push through with like brute force, and I like seeing her kind of like work through these things and using her knowledge she gained as a scribe to kind of overcome these obstacles. So I just think Violet was a really great character. It's been a while, I feel like, since I really fell in love with the main female character, and I just really, really enjoyed Violet as a character. I thought she was really great. I really did like Mira as a character. We kind of get that whole like protective older sister routine, and I mean, like, protective older brother is like so overdone, and like I know like obviously like Brennan is dead, you know, dead, but like protective kick butt older sister, like I feel like that's like a very fresh take, and I really wound up enjoying it, especially as somebody that, I mean, like, I have two sisters. I'm the middle child. I have two sisters. So it's nice kind of to see like the sisters getting to connect like that, and I really loved their relationship overall. I really thought that they were really played nice off of each other, and it was really great sibling writing. Like I said, as I was reading, I took notes. I literally wrote in my notes for the book. I have a prediction. It is that Brennan is not actually dead. I think he secretly joined the rebellion and faked his death. He will probably reappear at the end of Iron Flame. So I was a little off about that plot point, but we'll talk about that more later. And then I wrote, like, is this too wacky of a theory? I don't know. I think that I just was really feeling it. I was like, there's no way that he could be dead. And I won't go too much into it just yet. We'll talk more about it later in the video. But Basquiat as a whole is kind of like really intense, and the whole time I was reading about this really intense war college where like barely anybody survives, all I could think about was like, imagine like going to like regular college. Like, you're going to school, you're gonna be an engineer, you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be a librarian even, right? So you're going to library school, and like the first day people are like, just so you know, 3/4 of you are gonna be dead by the time you graduate, just for being like incompetent. Like, oh, sorry, you couldn't memorize the Dewey Decimal System. Like, sorry, you're done. You're done. Good luck. I just feel like realistic fiction could never have the stakes be that high, and I was living for it. And that's kind of like why I love fantasy so much, because it's like the stakes are just like so impossibly high, and I think it's great. Like, even just like the parapet scene, right? Like, I thought it was so stressful having to write like college admission essays and like having to go through the whole process of applying to college. Imagine like they're like, okay, we're gonna let you in for so you could get your liberal arts degree, but first you have to cross this this balance beam of death across this huge chasm, and you have to kind of like see if you can survive, like see if you can live, you know. Well, and then maybe we'll think about letting you in, and maybe you can get your degree at the end. Like, I just think it's so funny, like thinking about like stuff from fantasy like in like a modern context and kind of seeing like how it plays off of it. And after the parapet, like that kind of brings you to Dain, right? And I wrote in my notes, okay, Dain started off so strong. Confession, I always end up rooting for the friend in the love triangle, but his insistence that Violet is weak and should run away is seriously horrible. Boo, we're not here at all for that. And we really aren't. I thought Dain was kind of sweet at the beginning. I loved their friendship. I like that we kind of got a good look at that. But once he started being like, you know, Violet, you're kind of like weak, and you're kind of like really fragile, and maybe you should think about like not doing this. And Violet's like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like, you're not the boss of me. I was like, yes, I was okay with Dain until he started really downplaying Violet as a person, and then I was like, goodbye, Dain, goodbye, don't bother. So then you get the battles, and the battles that I talked about before, where they're like fighting like hand-to-hand combat, and they're trying to train them on hand-to-hand combat. And you have Violet, who she's very sneaky, she's very smart, right? She uses her big brain, and she's like, okay, physically, probably, and this goes back to the whole knowing her limitations thing. Physically, I probably cannot beat these people in hand-to-hand combat. So what can I do in order to win? I know, I can just make them weaker than I am, and then I can just win by default because they won't be able to fight. And she does that, and she poisons people. She puts herself, she volunteers for breakfast duty so that she can then poison people, and she doesn't have to worry about, oh, how am I going to win this fight? And I feel like that's like so devious. It's such like a writer move. Like, you have this girl who was raised for the scribes, and you have this girl who was raised to kind of in this quiet environment where she was very studious and studying, and now you have her where she's like, all right, how can I use my knowledge to my advantage? Let me poison these people because I have a book of poisons that I took with me, you know. And it's just it was just so entertaining to kind of see her use her strengths to her advantage. I'm a big Violet fan. I really love Violet as a character. After that, I kind of like skipped ahead a little bit. We already talked a little bit about the gauntlet and how amazed I was when she grabbed the rope and like climbed up the side that way, or even when she used her daggers. And again, I feel like this whole video is just me fangirling over like how Violet is so big brained that like I can't handle it. When she used her daggers to then get up the side of the ramp, there was the girl that gave her a tough time. She like later dies because she tried to kill her. And Violet's kind of like, no, I followed the law. I used the daggers I carried with me over the parapet, and so they were part of my person. And then I didn't cheat. I didn't use any like cheats or anything like that to get up the side of the ramp. And I was like, my girl is so smart. I was like, I was so here for it. And I know I'm missing things in between that have happened, but I'm kind of just trying to hit on like the big points that I took note of. And then you get the threshing, and the threshing was so intense. Like, I was so excited about the threshing. It kind of gave me like the Bloodright vibes from A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I often see this book compared to A Court of Thorns and Roses, and during the beginning I kind of like agreed with it a little bit, but about like halfway through, and especially at the end, there was a totally different book that this book started to remind me of, and I will go into all of that detail at the end. So anyway, you get to the threshing, and you have Jack and his like groupies trying to go and kill the golden dragon, who we now know as Andara, during the threshing. And Violet is like, I don't understand like what this guy's problem is with having to like eliminate the weak. But I see a lot of myself in Andarna, and I am going to go and protect her. And so she does. And even though she like gets injured and like all this different stuff, she stands up for Andarna, and it was so sweet, and I loved it. And I was so excited that they let her bond with both Taryn and Andarna. And I was very excited about it. I thought it was really great. I love Andarna as a character. I feel like she has a really great personality, and I'm so excited to see what she's going to be like in the future books as she gets older. But I guess I really thought that like before I knew like Taryn was an option, I really thought it was just going to be Andarna, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then when Taryn did show up, and I was like, okay, she's going to bond with both of them, I figured Andarna would kind of be like, Taryn's really big, Violet's kind of on the smaller side. Maybe Andarna will like act like an elevator almost, and she'll carry Violet up onto Taryn's back. But then they said that Andarna was too small to carry any rider, so I guess not. But I was like, a picture the whole time was Violet like getting on Andarna's back, and then Andarna would like fly her up and then deposit her onto Taryn's back. But never mind. And then after that, you get the Dain and Violet kiss scene, and Violet feels nothing, and I was like, understandable, because he's a total jerk, and he's so mean to her about her not being strong enough, you know, and she feels nothing, and that's like the first time you really get an idea of the fact that she's like super attracted to Xaden, naturally. We always want what we're not supposed to have. And it's even worse because Violet and Xaden's dragons are mated, and they're gonna kind of be forced together. I am confused on the whole, like, Violet and Xaden need to protect each other thing. Like, from my understanding of, like, the lore in the book, right? So if a dragon dies, then their rider dies as well, as far as I can tell. But if the rider dies, the dragon lives, right? So a dragon without its rider is a tragedy, but a rider without its dragon is dead. That's like the whole saying for the book, right? So from that, I'm getting that dragons don't die if their rider dies. They just might be like a little upset about it, you know? And I do understand, like, if Taryn and Scale are too far apart, um, if that's the case, then they could die and then both their riders would die. But I don't understand why it's like, okay, Xaden has to protect Violet because if Violet dies, then it's possible Xaden will die. Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. I didn't, like, track that, like, within that my understanding. It's just, like, a lot of interconnected life forces, and I feel like that is, like, what's throwing me off, is that, like, everything is, like, so connected that I just have no clue what's going on. And speaking of Dain being a jerk and Violet not feeling anything, I loved when she would like tell him off, and then she literally says to him like, "We're never going to be more than friends because like you don't believe in me. Like you think I'm weak. You don't think I'm strong enough to handle any of this." And I was like, "You tell him. Like you are so strong and you work so hard to prove yourself, and he just sees you as that little girl from when you were younger." And I mean, it's so frustrating to be in that position where everyone is doubting you, and the one person who you think is gonna have your back doesn't support you. Like that's crazy. Like I feel like that's like so annoying and frustrating, and I was so glad that Violet stood up for herself in that situation, and she was kind of like, "You know what, Dain, no, we're never gonna go anywhere because I need somebody that's gonna support me." And then immediately she's like, "Oh, Xaden," like, because clearly he thinks that she's capable of defending herself, and he really believes in her, and we're here for it. I love it. So not everybody bonds a dragon, and you have the group of people that kind of don't really like Violet. I mean, she bonded with the strongest dragon that was like not even really supposed to be part of the threshing and part of the bonding ceremony, but Violet bonds him anyway, and she gets 2 dragons, and some people are left with no dragons. So you have that scene where where a bunch of people come in the middle of the night and they try to kill Violet, and Violet is kind of just like freaking out. And Xaden comes, but then Andarna winds up rescuing her, and it's this whole thing, and then you get that really like tender injury scene, and I read that scene when I was at work, and my heart was just pounding. Like I was like, oh my god, this is like so like sweet, but like tension packed. Like it was such a good scene. And then from there, that was when I kind of decided to make, we were like about the midpoint of the book. It's now time to make my midpoint prediction. So my midpoint prediction was as written here. Xaden is going to somehow betray Violet, whether it be at the end of this book or at some point during book 2. He's somehow still involved with the rebellion, and it turns out Basgiath is covering something up. Maybe how Brennan truly was killed, maybe the true details of the rebellion. All I know is that somehow Basgiath and her mother are lying to Violet. She's going to think Xaden betrayed her, but in all actuality, he's trying to save her. Violet will find out what happens, join up with Xaden and the rebellion, and the last few books will focus on Violet and Xaden fighting against Navarre, Basgiath, Violet's mom, Mira, and Dain. Half of that happened, which is crazy to me. I think I just read too much, and that like I feel like you kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, yeah. Or I just like was on this like very similar wavelength to what was going on. I was just picking up on the nuances. I don't know. But I was so impressed with myself when I did finally finish the book, and like majority of my predictions came true. I was like, oh my goodness, am I a genius? Like I couldn't believe it. Moving on from the predictions and jumping back into the second half of the book, being able to stop time is like so OP. And like I know she can't use it too often because like it draws from Andarna's life force, but I mean we do get to see her use it twice in this book alone, so I feel like it's like so interesting. And I know that's gonna change and it's gonna go away, but I literally like, when she stopped time, my jaw dropped. Like I was like, what? Like that's so crazy. Like so OP, so good. I also loved then from that point on, you kind of have everybody super involved in Violet's training. So you have Imogen, Rhiannon, Xaden, like all of them are kind of like really invested in helping Violet to get stronger and helping her to survive. And it really just makes you realize that like Dain has no interest in what Violet wants as a person. He kind of has like his own agenda, and he's just like very like protect Violet, and he doesn't think, let me protect her by helping her to protect herself. Let me protect her by shoving her away and hiding her away where she can't get hurt. Like it's like we're not here for it. He doesn't want to like equip her to protect herself. He just wants to hide her away. It's very Tamlin of you, Dain. And I hate to compare to A Court of Thorns and Roses again, but it's giving Tamlin. But speaking of like equipping Violet to protect herself and to better herself, you have Xaden, who makes her a saddle because she can't stay seated on Taryn while they're flying. And he's like, okay, I'm not gonna tell her that she just shouldn't ride dragons because she is not strong enough to stay on. I'm gonna help her, and I'm gonna find her a way to stay on Taryn's back. And he makes her the saddle, and I almost cried. Like, Xaden's love language, giving gifts, like, we love that. Like, it was so good. And then you have the war games coming up, right? And the war games are happening, and we finally get Violet's power. And she literally just like blasts Jack right out of the sky. And so many things were going through my head at this moment. But the most important one was, oh my god, Mare Barrow. And like literally, this wasn't the first time that I like compared the two characters, because like they literally have the same hair with like the brown on the top and then the silver on the bottom. They're like have the same power. Like, they both have lightning powers, and like there's one other very important thing that they have in common that I'm not gonna bring up just yet. But they both have 2 love interests. I like mapped it all out because I was like, this is like so important that I like draw these connections for you people. So they both have 2 love interests, and one she's supposed to want, who would be Dain, and like in Red Queen it would be Maven, is not the one she actually wants, which is like Xaden in here, but Cal in Red Queen. And I kind of have to like stop there because like the rest of it is like a super, like, I need to like talk about it more in depth like towards the end of the book. Anyway, I just had to say goodbye, Jack. You will not be missed. Have a nice afterlife. And I feel like this is an appropriate time to bring up Liam. And Liam is probably my favorite character in the book. He is near and dear to me. He holds my entire heart. He is the exact character that I fall for every single time that I'm reading and a character like him pops up. He kind of gave me Cassian vibes, again, comparing it to A Court of Thorns and Roses, but he gave me Cassian vibes, and I just love that type of character. He has like that, like, I would die for my best friend. So I would probably die for you as well, because like you're my best friend's lady. But that doesn't like stop him from being like flirty and like totally joking. Everything I look for in a man is in Liam. Like, the confidence that he could have anyone and anyone would be lucky to be with him. But he's like such a simp for like one girl, you know, like, and we never get to really see Liam with a girl or a love interest in general. But I just know he would have been like treating them right, you know? King energy. And we live, laugh, love Liam in this household. So it should have been an indicator right there of what was going to happen to Liam. But what are you gonna do? And I don't know that I'm going fully chronological anymore, but I think I'm kind of like close-ish to like what the order of events are in the book. And then I think it's so funny that like Taryn and Scale are ultimate matchmakers. Like, they're like, who can we pick to bond with that they will then fall in love? And I think it's great that like Violet and Xaden and then Taryn and Scale are like, they're like matched up together. Like, it's so cute. Like, I loved it. Ultimate matchmakers, you know. We finally get to the part where Violet and Xaden get together. And it is shocking, for lack of a better term. I know that's a bad pun, but all I will say is that it was completely unhinged. I mean, like, broken furniture everywhere, and Xaden just like casually makes all of his friends clean up the mess. Like, I was like, then we get like a little bit of distance between Xaden and Violet. The whole like, I'm broken, you could never love me, like, I'm damaged goods, blah blah blah, whatever. But I mean, like, they broke her dresser. And Violet is like a smart girl, and she's like, I'm not giving that up. Like I said, she knows better. Come on. And then we get the scene out on the parapet where they finally admit that they have feelings for each other, which was so sweet, because it was kind of like, I love you and your flaws, you know? Like, it's not like, then that's like always a weak spot for me. Like I love when people like are so accepting of the damage that their partner has sustained throughout the years, and they love them in spite of it and because of it, you know? Like it gets me every time. I'm such a sucker for that stuff. And then you get this scene where they break the window, and all I could think of, especially after Violet made the comment that her mom, like during this time during the war games when they were stealing the map, and they go into her mom's office and she's like, oh yeah, my mom's making the budget for next year. All I could think about was that the furniture budget must be through the roof at this school. The college is basically like war and sleeping with each other. As Violet likes to point out, like everybody is just getting it on all over the college, and you have like all of these people with powers. So like if any of them are like Violet and Xaden, like I'm just saying, like you're gonna need a big furniture budget, you know? And from there, we have the last 50 pages of the book. The best like 50 to 70 pages of the book. And it had my brain absolutely spinning. So much happened, and I was like kind of right about a lot of it. Not to like toot my own horn, but like a lot of my predictions were like pretty close to being spot on. And I was shocked about it because like I'm usually not overly great at making predictions of what's gonna happen. But look at me go. Because we had, if you'll remember, we had Xaden betraying Violet. And he's working with the people from Poromiel, and he's been giving them weapons, right? And Violet is rightfully angry because her whole life she's been told that the people in Poromiel are the enemy. Like her whole family and her college, like her mom's way of life is all based around Basgiath and this war against Poromiel. They're the enemy in her eyes, and Dain is still working with the rebellion, and Basgiath is really covering something up from Violet. I wasn't really sure exactly what it was that they were covering up. I thought it was going to be something to do with Brennan. But it's the existence of Venin, which I didn't see coming. Should have probably seen coming because they brought it up a few times. So like I figured there was like no way that this was like a made up thing. But I just didn't think that was what they were going to be covering up. So like, I don't know. And like the signs were there. I mean, like you have on the other side of Poromiel, you have the Barons. And like if you think back to like the book, they say how like the Venin drained all of the magic or all the life force from the area around them. So like the Barons make sense. Why did I not think Barons equals Venin? No? Like I was mad at myself for not like thinking of that. Like, listen, sometimes things get by me. Sometimes I pick up on things and sometimes they get by me. What are you gonna do, you know? And even like Violet's dad's note, like everything just like skated right past me. I was like so focused on what was gonna happen with Xaden and like her brother that I didn't even think about the Venin. Like I didn't even consider them. On that note, Xaden is trying to save her from the lies being told by her mother and Basgiath and Navarre. Like I just like, I don't know. Like I just was impressed with myself for once. I'm usually not impressed with myself, but for this time I was. And it is revealed that Dain has been using Violet for intel. Now this got me because I knew something was up with him because he kept like touching her face, and like I don't care how good of friends you are, you're not like lovingly touching each other's face all the time. And like I just thought it was weird, but I just figured like Rebecca Yarros was just trying to like kind of get us to find him creepy and possessive, and I kind of like moved on. I was just like, yeah, he's a weirdo, and like moved on with my life. But the fact that he was reading her memories and feeding them to the higher ups at Basgiath, like he's such a slut for the rules. Like there's really no other way to say it. Like, and then when he like says goodbye to Violet, and he's like literally says goodbye to her, not like I'll see you when you get back. Like he literally says goodbye to her. He knew that not only was she going with Dain, she knew that she was gonna die. He knew he was sending all these people to die, and he still was like, I'm okay with it, you know, because it's for Navarre and it's for Basgiath, and that's the rules. Like if you break the rules, you have to die. Like I was so mad. I was so mad at him. And again, that was probably the point, Dain's betrayal, that brought me to Red Queen the most.
Warning, there are spoilers for Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard ahead. I'm going to be comparing Victoria Aveyard's Red Queen series to Fourth Wing for the next few minutes, and I just wanted to warn that there will be spoilers, so if you haven't read Red Queen, proceed with caution. I will leave the cover up on the screen while I'm talking about it, so you can mute and avoid spoilers, and once the cover goes away, you are safe to unmute the video and to come back and join us.
Stay with me here, right? So Maven betrays Mare at the end, right? He sets her up and he sets Cal up, similar to how Zane sets up Violet and Xaden. And the plan is to get Xaden, right? So Dain's plan is to get Xaden and the rest of the marked to kill them, right? And Violet kind of is like collateral damage a little bit, right? And similar, Maven wants to frame Cal, and Mare is collateral damage, you know, like it's very similar. And I just, the two kind of like really, they go together really well in my mind, and I was like amazed. And like Red Queen is one of my favorite books, so like it just like it left me with like a good feeling like reading Fourth Wing. And then you have like your big fight, right? People die. We lose Liam, and I don't remember like losing anybody overly important at the end of like the first Red Queen book. But still. And then Xaden and Violet have to like go into hiding. And then Mara and Cal escape, and this is the real kicker. This was like, I was like, this is like what got me, right? So Brennan, right? Brennan and Shade from Red Queen, the mayor's brother, are both alive. Like, I was like, brother killed in a war, fighting for one side, which would be like the crown or the government, and then killed by like a rebellion group, like Red Dawn and Red Queen, only for it to be revealed that the death was a lie, and they were actually working with the rebellion the whole time. Like, I was like it's the same book but different fonts, you know? And I'm not even mad because like I ate it up. Like, I was like, it was everything I ever wanted, and I literally can't wait for the rest of the series. Like, Red Queen was already one of my favorite books. Like, it was like one I read in high school, and it just like, I loved all of like the political intrigue, and I just like really enjoyed the story overall. And now like Fourth Wing could be added to that list too. And I've seen so much comparison between Fourth Wing and A Court of Thorns and Roses. And yeah, whatever, like Xaden and Azriel, Shadow Daddies, and like Liam and Cassian, but like, why is nobody talking about Fourth Wing and Red Queen? Like, I'm serious. Like, same book, different fonts. Like, I literally like finished reading Fourth Wing and texted my sister, and I was like, if you liked Fourth Wing, you should read Red Queen, because I feel like it's like similar vibes, you know? But that's like, that's all I have to say on that. So if you like Fourth Wing, read Red Queen, because it was good. So on that note, it's time to now move on to our moment of silence for Liam. And he was my favorite. He was my homeboy. He was my main slice, my one and only. And the sass, the charm. He was like golden retriever boyfriend vibes with like the occasional like Rottweiler tendencies. He is everything. And he is dead. D-E-D, dead. And all of my favorite characters die. In any book, it's always my favorite character that dies. And I was so convinced, I was totally gaslighting myself into believing he was coming back. But then I was talking to my sister, and we like collectively remembered that Violet already mentioned that people don't come back from the dead. I mean, like, Violet says that when she's talking about her brother is the only thing. And like, he did, in a way, come back from the dead. So that's a point for another day though. But right now, we're talking about Liam. And this is where my theories for the series start to kick in. So Fourth Wing is the first book of 5. Iron Flame book 2 comes out in 2 days from the time that I'm recording this. And it's the perfect time for me to throw some theories at the wall and see if any of them stick. So theory 1, and this is where you're gonna have to hold on with me. Since I'm talking about theories, I'll put Fourth Wing down. So I can hold my notebook and make sure I get all these theories right. So theory 1 is that Liam is going to be resurrected. I know what you're thinking. I literally just said that Violet said that you can't bring anyone back from the dead. But that is just in Navarre, using dragon magic. And if you'll remember, Liam died in Peromiel, where we learn what is crawling around, Venin. And Venin are beings of dark magic, right? So people who have stolen so much power, they turned a third of the continent into a wasteland. So who's to say that these Venin can't resurrect someone, right? And I think it would be pretty useful, a dragon and its rider, the top of the class, besides like Violet, obviously, as your prisoner, or even fighting on your side, right? Because there's no rule saying that Liam and Day come back as themselves, especially like, and this is what really gives my theory a little bit of merit. Dragon magic that creates the wards around Navarre blocks all of the types of magic, including Venin. It sounds to me like resurrecting Day and Liam would be mighty helpful for the Venin cause. And while we're on the topic of wards, we'll jump into my second theory. And that kind of jumps us to a new character who is Mira. And Mira is tricky to pin down because her role largely in Fourth Wing is to kind of like protect Violet. We see her go against Lilith at the beginning. We see her in action at Montserrat. Most moves she makes are kind of like to protect Violet, especially since her Signet is reinforcing the wards. I think that Mira knows things, but some things are like being hidden. I think like what Mira knows is that Brennan was with the rebellion, Venin and Wyvern are real, and Xaden was sneaking supplies out. And I think the thing that Mira doesn't know is Brennan is alive. And that single fact is going to be like it's going to play like a huge part in Mira's decision. So we know that Violet is kind of like the most important thing in Mira's life. So it stands that Brennan was held like pretty high up there too, right? She really values her siblings and they're really important to her. So I'm thinking that Lilith knew her son was working with the rebellion even before his death, but we see like countless times with Violet that Lilith doesn't particularly care about her children, or at least she holds her children's lives as being like less valuable than her honor and Navarre. I genuinely believe that there was no real rebellion, or if it was staged as a cover-up to kind of like get rid of everybody that knew about the Venin. So Brennan was sent to like die by Lilith, similar to how like Dain kind of like caused them to send Xaden and the rest of the marked ones to die during like the war games. I mean, like it tracks and it's on brand for her, you know. I promise it's on brand for Lilith. But Brennan didn't die. And I'm not fully convinced that the rebellion leaders died too. Either way, it was reported that Brennan died. I think Violet is going to kind of like seek Mira out during Iron Flame, and I think they're kind of like gonna reveal to Mira that the Venin are real, but Mira's gonna be like, I already know that. Like, she won't really be like surprised by it. After all, she is the one that reinforces the wards because that's her signet. So I feel like it's just like she has to know. It's only logical that Mira knows about the Venin and the Wyvern because she has to help keep them out. And she mainly does this for Violet because she wants to protect Violet from the nasty dangers of the world outside. It's kind of like her constant refrain. She doesn't want to be an only child, and she says that multiple times. Then this is kind of like where Brennan comes in, because she hates the marked ones for killing her brother, right? But like Brennan wasn't actually killed, right? So it kind of like negates Mira's hate. Like there's no reason for her to hate the marked ones. There's no reason for her to hate Xaden because Brennan was never killed. He was alive. He was living with the rebellion. And I think this is where like Lilith's scheme would be revealed. I think like Brennan knows what Lilith did, and I think that that's where like her scheme would be revealed to Mira, and Mira's gonna like have to kind of decide if she wants to like join Violet, Brennan, Xaden, and like the rebellion, or if she wants to continue to follow the orders of her mother, who could so easily throw away her siblings and kill her siblings. Honestly, her actions in Fourth Wing suggest that she'll side with the rebellion, but I'm not really convinced. I feel like we don't really know enough yet. So I think that is the only two theories that I'm going to really share with you guys. I just think like Iron Flame is mainly going to focus on Violet dealing with like family stuff. Her father essentially died of a broken heart due to Brennan being killed. And I think that maybe he knew about like this plot to kill Brennan from the mother. And that's why like him and the mother never like really agreed after that. And then he dies of a broken heart, which is so sad. Mourning a child that wasn't even dead. And that quite possibly, like I said, his wife maybe sent to kill. So it's just I think that this is gonna be like a lot for Violet to try and process, and she was so close to her dad, you know. So I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen and whether or not these theories will hold. On a side note, I think it's interesting that the last chapter was kind of, or like the epilogue was kind of told from Xaden's point of view, and I'm kind of wondering like if we'll get somebody else's point of view during Iron Flame, whether it be like maybe like Dain or Mira or something like that, or maybe even a resurrected Liam. I don't know. But we only have 2 days until we find out, and I'm so excited. I think it's gonna be so great. I'm really looking forward to Iron Flame. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. My copy got delayed. I pre-ordered it and it's got delayed, so I'm hoping it'll be here sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think Fourth Wing was really exciting. It was a lot of theories. It really made you think, and I think that that's really great. I think any book that makes you think is really valuable and important. So I'm super excited. I think that it was really great, and I definitely suggest checking it out. That's all I have to share with you guys today. I'm super excited about this, and I think it'll be good. So we'll have to, fingers crossed, maybe some of my mostly my Liam theory will come true. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this very rambly review of Fourth Wing, and happy reading.